So I'm going to join from my end. I'll click everything so we can start the Facebook stream.
The slide, where's the slides?
You represent let me hang up here.
All right, I hung up from the WhatsApp part.
Same here.
Okay. All right, so the slides, I sent it to you through email. You're gonna have to share the screen on your end. If you can't, let me know and I'll open it up.
Yeah, I don't know how you worked the slide doohickey.
All right, I'll do it on my end.
No, where's I gotta do?
Okay. Oh, yeah, basically all you gotta do is open it up, and then at the bottom, there's a little button that says share screen. And when you're ready, just start sharing the screen.
Yeah, I got it from here. Let's let people join.
Awesome. So right now, I think we have one attendee already in. And we're gonna wait a little bit if more people join.
Hopefully there's not a lot of background noise. My neighbors cutting the grass.
Hopefully not.
So far not.
Oh, good. Hello, Andrea.
Hello.
Okay, so we're just giving it till maybe 2:05 tops, and then we're gonna go ahead and get started with the people who are in here and start the whole. I'm setting up the Facebook part on my end.
Okay. Reminder to turn off the phone. Questions for the end. There will be a questions period at the end, but if you do have any immediate questions, please go ahead and raise your hand or go ahead and type into the chat section of the Zoom meeting and post your question there. My name is Frank Luna, and I'm a business advisor, contract professional for PTAC, which is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center that is funded by the DoD and the DLA, Defense Logistics Agency, and Department of Defense to assist small businesses in contracting to the government. And I also support the SBDC in the Imperial Valley in the government contracting arena. So I am a local source in the Imperial Valley as well. So we'll go through this slide and you will see kind of a roadmap of, we'll go through the basics. We'll look at how to research opportunities and target agencies. Register and certify with the target agencies that you're looking to do business with. And then create a capability statement to start marketing and building relationships. The capability statement is going to be how you market to the federal government. It's going to be your company's online resume. That's kind of what a capability statement is. So in learning the basics, the size of the government market is very large, of course. The government is the largest customer in the world. And then, so in doing business with the government, you have to classify your products or services that you offer. Certifications are going to come in place, and then we'll go through the definitions of those certifications. And then we'll also go through the different agencies, the both government sectors, which is the state and the federal sector, and their procurement goals for the year. So as you can see, the US government is the biggest customer in the world. This is a slide from 2018. Their spend in contractual services and supplies was $375 billion. And there's a breakdown of the percentages of where that spend was. Now, out of this spend, the federal government has to spend 23 cents on every dollar on a small business. And that's part of the government's socioeconomic development program to give small businesses economic development growth and also a share in the federal government's business. And here's the spend by geography. Of course, you can see that California, being also the 6th largest economy, is a state that is also spends a lot of money, procures a lot of services in the state sector. So more than $50 billion are in the dark blue areas. Now there's also different spends by categories, of course. So 15.3% of all awards were in the US were federal contract dollars, and in California, $57 billion worth of spend. Now, how do you classify your government or your products to the government? So as a small business, you have to market to the government, but you also, more importantly, have to show what you do, what you guys produce. Are you a manufacturer? Are you a distributor? Or are you a service provider? But the government classifies these entities, which are businesses, with different NAICS codes. And the NAICS code is the North American Industry Classification Code that is used by the federal government to classify, for example, janitorial services. It's a 5-digit code that will go into your profile when you register your company as a vendor to the federal government. There's also PSC codes, which are product service codes. And then the state of California has their own codes. The federal government and the state government, since they don't, just like when we do our taxes, they don't talk to each other. They're two separate entities. The state of California uses UNS PSC codes. So when you register to these agencies, like I mentioned, as a vendor, you will use and you will look up these codes to classify your capabilities. Now, there's a lot of information in these slides, but again, we are here to help navigate through any of this, and also to answer any questions, and also to pick the correct codes to classify your business. Both PTAC and SBAC are here to help you understand both sides of the government contracting, since they do operate differently. The federal government operates under the FAR, Federal Acquisitions Regulations, and the state government is under the Uniform Commercial Code. So, but we are here to help you navigate through those sites and help you understand these these terminologies. And of course, when you're dealing with the government, it's going to be acronyms. You're going to have to also learn certain acronyms: DOD, DLA, you name it. But this is this website that we would guide you to look up for your NAICS codes, your North American Industry Classification codes. You would type in a keyword for the service or the products that you provide, and you would pick the appropriate NAICS code. Now, there is also thresholds. Now, each NAICS code has a small business or a large business threshold. In order for companies to classify themselves as small businesses, they have to stay under a certain dollar size in annual sales or a certain employee size in number of employees. For example, the first NAICS code will be for contractor, new single-family housing construction. So that NAICS code is going to be 236115. The size standard on an annual basis is going to be $36 million. So they are going to be considered a small business until they surpass a 3-year average of over $36 million. Once you surpass that, you cannot classify your business as small business. The size standard also applies, and for contractors, since their jobs do range in scope, it could be anywhere from 50 employees to 100 employees. Any questions so far? I know we have a small group, so I think we have time to discuss any of this. Okay.
No questions.
Okay, so as I mentioned, the procurement goals. The federal government, 23 cents on every dollar has to be spent on a small business. So every agency, that's their initiative. It's going to be their goal. Now within that small business, there are subcategories. So you'll have 5% of prime subcontracting awards will go to women-owned small businesses. 3% of contracts will go to hub zone areas. 3% will go to service disabled veteran-owned businesses. And then 5% will go for standard disabled businesses, those small disabled businesses. So in order to also market your small business status, there's certifications that go along with this that the federal government and also the state also give. Now the state sector is 25% of their spend has to go to a small business or a micro business. 3% to service disabled veterans. So under the federal, there's a lot more subcategories that a small business can qualify for. So if you're a small business and, for example, you're woman-owned, you're in a hub zone. Hub zone is an impoverished business area. In other words, there's not a lot of businesses in this one zip code, and so they're trying to stimulate this commercial area, so they call it as hub zone. So you're a woman-owned business, you have a zip code within a hub zone, and you happen to be a veteran. So you would go after a woman-owned veteran, small business, hub zone company. And you want to make sure that you try and check as many boxes as you can. And the reason is because each agency will have a certain initiative for the year. In other words, their 23% spend has to be so small businesses, but some might put emphasis on a hub zone for the year. Some might put an emphasis on a veteran-owned business or women-owned business to fill up their initiatives for the year. Every agency has different initiatives. For example, the VA Center, their initiatives are going to be disadvantaged companies and veteran-owned companies and disabled veteran-owned companies. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And the state of California only offers 2, the veteran owned business and the small business micro. But there's other state agencies that will offer women-owned business certifications, minority-owned business certifications, and also disadvantaged-owned certifications. And we'll get into those later. Now, There is a lot of information out there. And so as you get into, we call it the alphabet soup, I also call it the weeds, there are some sites here for information, for references, for either, they could be acronym references, it could be bid question references. In other words, it does get convoluted, so there are definitely sites that help you navigate and also understand the terminologies within the government sector. But again, we're here to help. Now, how do you find, once you want to, so you've done your marketing, you want to target, you've done your registration with the government. Now, where do you find the bids that are posted? Locating unadvertised opportunities, learning about purchase thresholds. So the federal agencies, like I mentioned, there are many. These are just a handful of the agencies, and that's what we're asking. You want to target certain agencies that are going to use your products or your services. So if you're in the example tire business, of course, you're going to target the Department of Transportation, you know, agencies that have need for your products. And this is the federal BizOps, the federal site for searching bid opportunities. Now, this site has changed and it is continually evolving. It is now called beta.sam, which is a combination of other sites to, in essence, put everything in one stop. So within this site, you can search bid opportunities for keywords, any specific set aside. And in the new site, you still have the same search fields. So what I mean by set asides is the government spend, the 23% spend is called a set aside. The socioeconomic classes underneath that set aside are the women-owned businesses, the hub zone businesses, the service disabled veteran businesses. You can search for any of those specific set asides and they will come up. And that's how you find which agency has that specific initiative. And the next slide are the thresholds. So like I mentioned, everything they have to bring in small businesses on awards. Even contracts over $250,000 and over 1.5 million still have to have small business contractors participating. Even though the scope of the work is probably not something that a small business can handle, but they still have to have a certain participation where a large contractor brings in a small business to fulfill that government set aside. So for a small business, it's also good to be a subcontractor for a large contract to satisfy that specific government set aside. Companies that are certified as any of these socioeconomic classes are very attractive to large businesses because they can help penetrate the federal government with that set aside. In my, when I ran a private industry, I ran a large firm, a distribution firm. I would partner up with small businesses that were in the same capacity as me, that had the same capabilities, but were small businesses. I would have a woman-owned business, a service disabled, veteran-owned business, so they can penetrate those sectors of the government. They would fulfill the government set aside. They would partner up with a large firm like myself, and legally we would fulfill a government contract in tandem, which is totally acceptable. And it is a very good strategy to start navigating into the government arena. The state sector. The state of California is Department of General Services. They have a very intuitive site, which is very easy to navigate and very easy to sell to the state. In other words, register as a vendor and also acquire your small business certification. Their site is also posts all open and historical bids. And that's another thing for your knowledge, is that the government has to be transparent with all their spend. So every procurement, both historical and open, has to be public knowledge. Anything over $25,000 has to go out to a bid, and the lowest bid or the most capable company has to be awarded the contract. So with that said, if you're selling commodities, you can see what they're paying for them right now for those commodities, and you can also gauge your marketing strategy to go after that piece of business. The state sector was a sector that I would also penetrate. I would penetrate the Department of Corrections. They would consume a lot of products, and so that was my initiative. That was my agency that I targeted. And I would use a small business to target that agency and penetrate that account. Next slide. State and local opportunities. And again, each state and local agency will have different purchasing thresholds. Now, the state also encompasses with local municipalities, for example, state universities, local schools, police departments. Those are all state agencies where the small business certifications will be, the small business certification set aside will be used as an award to dictate an award. So any agency that receives government funds will utilize the Fair Bid Act and implement the small business set aside. While researching the government opportunities, start building a list of the target government customers. Be selective, and then you want to choose a good customer that you can sell to correctly. In other words, the last thing you want to do is get an award, win an award, and not be able to fulfill that award. And then again, also don't forget about subcontracting opportunities. Our website also has a ton of resources. Finding unadvertised opportunities, data mining and marketing, finding contracts and representatives with primes via solicitations and award notifications at FBO or beta.sam, and also the state agencies. Credit and card micro purchases. Those are for anything. The military also issues contracting officers with P cards, purchase cards. And they have purchase cards that they can buy anything less than, I believe it's $5,000. And that is, for anything for an immediate need. There's also SAP, Simplified Acquisitions under the federal sector, where they don't need a formal bid. All they need to get is 2 to 3 quotes. IDIQ is an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts, which currently are being sourced by FEMA for all personal protective equipment under this pandemic situation. And what that is that for a situation like this, they would have an open contract that they would say, we're going to buy this product. We need indefinite quantities for an indefinite amount of time, and you're going to supply to the government for X price. And there'll be clauses in there, of course, that prices can be adjusted based on whatever situational or supply chain issues might arise, but IDIQs currently are being utilized by both state and federal sector for the pandemic relief. So with all that said, how do we get started? First, a DUNS number. Each company will have to acquire a DUNS number, a Dun & Bradstreet, to verify your location of your business and that you have a physical business that exists. Then you will need to register within SAM. SAM is the government system of award management, and that site manages all vendors that work with the government. Once that SAM registration is completed, the SBA launches your dynamic search business profile. So all that information is now public. Once you, like I mentioned, the government is transparent, so all their vendors are public knowledge. And then again, for the state of California, again, register and get certified with the state. Dun & Bradstreet, simple online. You can request an online Dun & Bradstreet if you do not already have one. Now, under the System of Award Management, SAM, you self-certified with the federal government initially. Now, the self-certification at the end of the registration process, you will check a box that all the information that you've entered is true, and you can be held liable and perjure yourself if found to be incorrect. So this is the login information for SAM. This I do recommend that you seek support from one of our advisors. The language within here, since the government operates under the FAR, is very different. Some of the questions that are asked, to me, they seem like, like you're going to a voting booth, that you're answering yes and it really means no. But that's just the language within that FAR, the government FAR section. So I do recommend that if you do want to register, that you seek some support. As soon as you register with SAM, you will get a notification, and you will start with a user login and enter all your entity or your company's information. I don't know why I put that there. But all this can be very stressful. And I equate registering with SAM as kind of doing your taxes for the first time. You don't want to make a mistake, but you want to make sure that you do them correctly, because if you make a mistake with your taxes, they follow you for a long time. Same with this. The registration is going to be your company bio, your company profile, and you want to make sure that it's done correctly. So like I mentioned, once SAM is complete, the SBA does launch your profile onto their systems. And here is where you would click to complete that SBA profile. Now, this one is very hard a lot of people do bypass this SBA profile. And so you want to make sure that because it is a supplemental page, you want to make sure that you do fill that portion out. And at the end of that SAM registration, you do have to save and continue. Once you finish your SBA profile, this window, the SAM window, will remain open until you return and submit your registration. And then after you submit all the information, what the government will do is they will validate all the information that was entered in a 3-step process. It will validate your location through DUNS. It will validate your EIN through the IRS. And then all the information will go to the Defense Logistics Agency for cage assignment. And the cage assignment is when your account becomes active and you become a registered vendor for the government. Doesn't necessarily mean that contracts will start flowing your way. It means that the government can now process a payment for your company. Of course, we always recommend you save the information. It is critical. You do have to renew your SAM registration once a year. And this is an overview of the summary that you would get from SAM. Now, small business is not always readily visible within SAM, but this is your certification within the government. It's hidden within one of the multiple pages of information you're going to be submitting. And so we're highlighting it so you make sure that you check this box. And then here's the SBA online profile that is completely optional, but is highly recommended. So once your SAM profile is active, this is what your online profile looks like. So that first one there, AVETS contracting, The profile is listed, their address is listed. There is a capabilities narrative that the client or that account entered physically into that SAM site, which I would recommend you kind of elaborate a little more on those capabilities narratives. But that's kind of what online profile looks like for a contracting officer. And when they click on that to view that first selection, then everything as far as your small business certification comes up, your NAICS code, your capabilities, your narrative, if you've been in business, how long, who's the president, and all your pertinent details are visible to a contracting officer. And here's a little more of the online profile. Now, the state of California. Do you want to sell to the state? Definitely. Pass this? Yes. And here's where you would register your company to sell to the state. Very similar to SAM, but in this environment, you would actually receive solicitations based on your capabilities. The state of California has a nice site that once you list your capabilities, you're given an option there to receive their event notifications. And that's what they call their bids, the state of California, events. So you're invited to events. As you can see, there's the latest event. You can get onto the site and search live events and also historical events. But once your profile is listed and you pick the correct UNSPSE codes and a correct email address, and you have a valid business, these events will be emailed directly to you as they come up. So like I mentioned, the capability statement. The capability statement is going to be a combination of all your certifications, all your capabilities of what you do as a company and what value you can provide the US government. Here's an example. It's a resume, pretty much. So this is a Alcatraz locksmith. So the government is very short and very dry. I'm not sure if anybody of you have done a presentation to a large firm, a large private firm. Very different than marketing to the government. With a large firm, I created 20-page or 20 slides on what I do as a company and who my employees are, how we are, as internal employees, and how do I treat my staff and whatnot. Very important for the private sector. The government is very short and very dry. All they want to know is exactly what you do in 1 or 2 sentences. For example, the beginning of this capability statement. Alcatraz locksmith has been serving San Diego since '95. So they're established. Full service locksmith, 25 years experience. Pretty much you know exactly what they do. There's really nothing further that I need to look at. And that's what contracting officers tell us. We don't need a 20-page slide of how you treat your employees. We don't need to see pictures of you guys having fun on the beach. We don't know exactly what you do. Are you certified? And as you see on the right-hand side, the contracting data, DUNS number, cage code, SAM, certifications, California, DGS, small business micro, license, NAICS codes. They're licensed and insured. They have contracts. Sounds like a very hireable company. And this is exactly how you market to the government. So creating the capability statement, we also have courses just like this on how to create capability statements. But again, you can also work with us one-on-one. For training, of course, there's PTAC and there's SBDC available for any training in any of these topics. We have a ton of workshops on a monthly basis, anything from marketing to the government, federal government to state, to creating capability statements, proposals. We're here to help. So our recommendations, of course, you want to be strong in business, have a plan. Contracting is not something that you want to say, okay, I'm going to start today, and by next week, next month, I'm going to have contracts. I'm going to have federal contracts. It's a learning process. Also, the government wants to make sure that you're an established company. As a contracting officer, I'm not going to hire a company that has not done the work and has not been proven out in the marketplace. So 1 to 2 years. You want to be in business for 1 to 2 years. Make sure that your business is secure, that it's tried and tested. Again, know your target markets. Strong cash flow. Contracts awards can also be very intimidating. A contract award is also a risk. If you receive for a contractor, if you receive a large contract to build tract homes, that's a multi-million-dollar contract. You're going to need supplies. There are loans that we can help with, but a contract award for me is a check, a money in the bank if you fulfill. And again, banks look at it that way. Contracts do not come automatically. You still have to network. You have to network with the contracting agencies that are looking for small businesses to procure from. It is a lot of relationships that are still have to be managed. It's not you just quoting and hoping that you get the contract. You want to establish relationships with contracting officers because you want to present your capabilities. You want to make sure that they know that you're a small business, that you're locally owned, and that you're here to offer local economic development while you're supporting the government's needs. And the last one, I can't say this enough, patience. When I started in the government contracting, it took me a year before I got my first award. And a year of learning, a year of bidding, recapping, losing bids, and learning what I did and how I lost. That way I can prepare for the next one. Creating the relationships, refining my company to service the government. So we do also have startup guides. Again, we do recommend that you work with a PTAC counselor or a SBDC counselor to help navigate through these. We're here to help in any of these capacities to help you set up your plan to target the government. Now, any questions? I know there was a lot of information that we covered, but I'll take any questions right now.
No questions.
Okay. Well, I wanted to thank you all for joining today. You can definitely contact us. You do have our email contact information if you have any follow-up questions.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.